Freedom, that word has always echoed in the depths of the human heart like a silent call from the soul itself. Since the moment we are born, we carry within us a longing for freedom. Freedom from attachment, from fear, from suffering, and from the invisible chains our own minds create. Yet, the paradox is this: the more we try to find freedom in the outer world, the more we lose it within. People today go through life filled with ambitions, fame, ideals, and dreams, but few ever stop to ask, what is true freedom? And why, even while living in a vast and open world, does our heart still feel narrow, suffocated, as if trapped inside an invisible cage? Buddhism, in its deepest essence, is not a religion to worship nor a doctrine to debate. It is a path, the path of awakening, of turning inward, of looking directly into the roots of suffering to find inner freedom. The Buddha did not grant humanity a blind faith, but offered a key. The key to open the door of awareness, where freedom is no longer a dream but a living reality in each breath, each moment of mindfulness. On the channel Buddha's Wisdom Journey, we walk together on that path, the path of returning to stillness, to wisdom, and to compassion. This journey does not promise miracles from the outside, but guides us toward inner transformation, where layers of illusion gradually fall away, and our mind begins to shine like a still lake reflecting the boundless sky. Inner freedom does not come from being able to do whatever we want, but from no longer being enslaved by what we want. When the mind is no longer dragged by anger, fear, or desire, then even while living amid the turbulence of life, we remain calm and at ease, like a white cloud drifting freely across the sky. The Buddha once said, "No one can give you freedom, only you can liberate yourself." Therefore, the path he taught is not about seeking perfection, but about learning to see reality as it is, to accept and release the invisible bonds that cause us suffering. Take a moment and listen to yourself. Have you ever felt exhausted by endless races? Felt like you were living on autopilot, striving to please others, to achieve success, yet still feeling empty inside? Have you ever wished that, just once, you could live lightly, without needing to prove anything to the world? If your answer is yes, then perhaps you are already standing at the threshold of the Buddha's path, the path of returning to yourself, the path of true freedom. Freedom in Buddhism is not an abstract concept but a state of mind. It arises when we understand the impermanent nature of all things and are no longer swept away by the tides of gain and loss, success and failure, love and hate. That freedom appears when we realize that nothing truly belongs to us, for even this body is merely a temporary borrowing from the earth and sky. When we see that truth, we no longer cling, and in that very letting go, freedom reveals itself, pure, simple, and boundless. Buddhism calls that path liberation, but do not think it distant or reserved only for monks and ascetics. In truth, every one of us is walking this path, only at different paces. Each time we learn to forgive, each time we pause before anger, each time we choose compassion over resentment, we take one more step toward freedom. Freedom does not lie at the destination but in every step we take. And perhaps, that is precisely the message Buddha's wisdom journey wishes to share with you. That the path to enlightenment is not about escaping the world, but living within it with a liberated heart. When we truly understand ourselves, we no longer need to chase happiness, for happiness has always been there, in each breath, in the stillness of a mind that has let go. This journey is not easy. For to find freedom, we must dare to face the very chains that have bound us for so long. Fear, memories, wounds, and the ego that endlessly seeks to control. But when we have the courage to look directly at them, without avoidance, each link begins to fall away. And then we realize that freedom is not something to be created, it has always been within us, merely obscured by the clouds of delusion. The Buddha's path is not an abstract philosophy but an art of living. The art of letting go, of seeing without clinging, of living unbound by the past or the future. It is the path of mindfulness, where every moment can become a doorway to peace. In today's modern world, where everything moves ceaselessly and people are surrounded by noise, the Buddha's teaching is like a cool stream flowing through a burning desert. It invites us to pause, to listen to the voice within, and to rediscover the simplicity of being. When the mind is at peace, the world too becomes peaceful. And that is the profound meaning of why Buddhism is a path to inner freedom, for Buddhism is not a religion of belief, but a path of realization. It does not ask us to follow anyone, but teaches us to turn inward and see for ourselves. On this journey with Buddha's wisdom journey, you are promised nothing but one simple truth: true freedom awaits you within. Not tomorrow, not in another lifetime, but right here, in this very moment, if only you are still enough to recognize it. Inner freedom, it sounds like something abstract, yet in truth, it is the most intimate thing every human being longs for throughout life. Freedom is not when we can go wherever we want or do whatever we please, it is when we are no longer bound by our own mind. We may live amidst countless relationships, responsibilities, and changes, but if the mind remains serene, untouched by fear or craving, that is true freedom. Buddhism does not teach us how to escape life, but how to live within it with a liberated heart. When the Buddha left the Golden Palace to enter the deep forest, he was not seeking another world, he was seeking truth. For he saw clearly that whether living in luxury or poverty, humans suffer all the same, simply because they have not yet understood their own minds. We are the same. Each of us carries within a palace and a forest. That palace is the alluring life of material comfort, fame, and desire. The forest is the stillness of the mind, the place where we can truly face ourselves, where illusion dissolves and truth gradually reveals itself. The Buddha's path does not encourage us to run away from life, but invites us to look deeply into the nature of all phenomena. When we look deeply, we see that everything is impermanent. Emotions, people, possessions, even this very body, all change moment by moment. We suffer because we forget this truth. We try to hold on to what cannot be held, to control what cannot be controlled. And in that effort to cling, we lose our peace. Buddhism points out that the root of all suffering lies not outside but in the clinging mind itself. The moment we desire, we begin to bind ourselves. The moment we fear losing, we have already imprisoned ourselves. And when we no longer desire anything, no longer fear anything, freedom naturally appears, like the open sky after clouds drift away. Freedom is not a destination, it is the natural state of the mind, revealed when we pause long enough to see it. But to reach that realization, we must learn to see life through the eyes of mindfulness. For mindfulness is the light that illuminates the shadows of ignorance that have long obscured us. When we sit still, simply listening to the breath, we discover that our mind is not as quiet as we think. It stirs, swirls, dances between memories and worries. But do not rush to chase those thoughts away. Buddhism teaches that stillness is not the absence of sound, but the absence of disturbance by sound. When we accept, when we observe without reacting, gradually we learn to live with everything without being swept away by anything. That is the deepest form of freedom. In the modern world, we are often taught that freedom means having the right to choose a job, a partner, a lifestyle. But Buddhism goes beyond that. True freedom does not lie in outer choices, but in freedom from what drives us to choose. When we choose out of fear, habit, or the need for validation, we are still not free. Only when the mind is no longer conditioned by the outer world, when we act from awareness and clarity, are we truly living in freedom. A person may be imprisoned behind bars, yet if their mind is not governed by hatred or fear, they remain free. Conversely, a person with power, wealth, and fame, if constantly afraid of losing them, is still living in a prison of their own making. This is the paradox the Buddha saw, and he revealed the path to transcend it, the middle way, where we neither chase after indulgence, nor fall into ascetic extremes, but live with mindfulness and balance. Freedom of the mind cannot be attained through theory or knowledge alone, but must be realized through direct experience. When we learn to pause with each breath, to feel the present moment deeply, we begin to see something miraculous. We do not need to change the world to find peace. The world remains as it is, only our mind transforms. And within that transformation, freedom blossoms. The Buddha's path, ultimately, is the path of returning to ourselves, to the original mind that is pure and radiant. All that we seek, peace, happiness, freedom, has always been within us. They are merely hidden beneath the dust of greed, anger, and ignorance. When we gently wipe away that dust with mindfulness and wisdom, the light of freedom naturally shines forth. A true practitioner does not seek to change the world, but to understand and transform themselves. When the mind is liberated, every circumstance becomes bearable. A free person no longer needs to prove anything, nor hold on to anything. They live lightly, like a leaf falling perfectly into the flow of the wind. They neither fear nor resist, for they know that everything moves according to the natural law of the universe. Freedom is not rebellion, it is profound release. When we let go, we do not lose ourselves, we are returned to ourselves. We begin to see everything clearly, joy and sorrow, light and darkness, yet are no longer ruled by any of it. Only then do we truly live. Buddhism is the path of mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom, the three elements that open the gate to liberation. Mindfulness helps us see, compassion helps us love, and wisdom helps us understand. When these three merge as one, our mind becomes as free as the sky, without borders, without division, filled only with serenity and vastness. And that is why Buddhism is called the path to inner freedom, because every bondage has never truly come from the outside, but from how we react to the world. When we change our perception, the whole world changes. When we see through the lens of liberation, everything becomes worthy of love, worthy of life. On this journey, Buddha's wisdom journey does not promise miracles, but gently invites you to return inward, to the place where freedom awaits. This journey is not a long voyage, but a homecoming, a return to the pure heart where no boundary exists between self and world, between happiness and suffering. Inner freedom is when we realize, there is nothing more to add, nothing more to remove. Just to live fully in the present moment, and in that moment, we are freed as we step deeper onto the path of mindfulness. We gradually realize that every suffering carries within it a hidden gift. At first, we may resist, get angry, or resent the things that do not go our way. But through each experience, we learn to see those challenges as lessons to open our hearts, rather than enemies to be avoided. It is in those very moments that our mind begins to taste the sweetness of freedom, a kind of freedom that no one can grant, and no one can take away. For true freedom does not come when we can control life, but when we no longer need to control it. When we understand that all things are impermanent, we no longer fear loss. When we see that happiness does not lie in holding on, we no longer chase after it. And when we realize that everything comes and goes according to conditions, we no longer worry about outcomes. This understanding, this is the wisdom of freedom. The Buddha once said, there is no path to freedom, freedom itself is the path. It sounds paradoxical, yet it is profoundly simple. Only when we live with a free mind in every small action, every thought, every word, does each moment become a step on the path of liberation. Freedom is not a goal at the end of the journey, but the very way we walk it. When we learn to live with a non-attached mind, everything becomes astonishingly light. We no longer need the world to be perfect for us to feel at peace. We no longer need others to change for us to be happy. We simply are, fully present, still, and free. In that presence, a deep peace arises, unconditional, without reason. That peace itself is the expression of inner freedom. Freedom is not the denial of emotion, but the clear knowing of emotions as they arise and fade without being ruled by them. We can still feel sadness, anger, or fear, but now we know they are merely ripples upon the surface of the mind's lake. When we no longer identify with those ripples, the lake naturally returns to stillness. Likewise, when we no longer identify with our thoughts, desires, or wounds, we return to the deepest part of ourselves, the part that has never been shaken, never been hurt, and never been lost. Within each of us lies such a sky, the sky of absolute freedom. Buddhism calls it nirvana, but do not think of nirvana as a distant place. Nirvana is not outside this world. It is within the mind when it ceases to cling. When the mind is no longer burdened by afflictions, freedom appears like boundless space in the open sky. Nirvana is not a place to arrive at, but a state of mind completely released. On this path, mindfulness is the lamp that illuminates every step we take. Each time we breathe with awareness, walk with awareness, speak and listen with awareness, we are returning to ourselves. Mindfulness is not a technique, but a way of living that allows us to see reality clearly without being swept away by illusion. In every mindful moment, freedom begins to bloom. Perhaps what makes the Buddhist path so unique is that it does not promise a future paradise, but simply invites us to live deeply in the present. The present, where, if we truly dwell, all suffering dissolves. The past is but memory, the future but illusion, only this moment is real. And when we live fully in this moment, we are living in freedom. Many people believe freedom means being free from all bonds, but in truth, freedom is the ability to live fully with all bonds without being controlled by them. A free person can do everything: work, love, care, serve, yet remain calm inside, like still water. Because they know that the nature of all actions is impermanence, and that only a tranquil mind is the true refuge. Inner freedom is not indifference or detachment from the world. On the contrary, it is the deepest form of connection. When the mind is freed from the ego, compassion naturally blossoms. We begin to see others not through the lens of comparison or judgment, but with eyes of understanding and love. Compassion is the living expression of freedom, for only when we are no longer bound by the self can we truly love unconditionally. Sometimes, the journey toward freedom is a journey of loss. We must lose our illusions, our false beliefs, the things that once made us think we were somebody. But after those layers fall away, we realize we have never lost anything at all, we have only returned to what has never left us. Just as the sky does not disappear when clouds drift by, our essence of freedom has never vanished, no matter how many times life changes. Try sitting still for a moment and listen to your own breath. In that moment, there is no need to strive. No need to seek, no need to become. Just breathe, deeply and slowly. Feel life flowing through every cell. Then you will realize that freedom is not something far away. It has always been here. In this breath, in the stillness between heartbeats. And then, you will see that the Buddhist path does not lead us anywhere, it only leads us back. Back to purity, to luminous awareness. To the boundless love already within each of us. When we return to that place, there is nothing more to fear, nothing more to seek. For when we have truly seen ourselves, we have seen the entire universe. Inner freedom is not a destination, but an awakening. Awakening to see that this life, though filled with suffering and impermanence, is profoundly beautiful when we learn to see with mindful eyes. Then, every morning we wake, every breeze, every smile, every tear, all become miracles. Finally, when we have walked through all the winding paths of our search, when our feet grow weary and the mind has tasted every shade of emotion, we suddenly realize that what we've been seeking has never been outside of us. Freedom is not found elsewhere, not in prayers, nor in some distant truth. It is here, in every breath, in this very moment, where we stop running, stop grasping, stop searching, and simply be. Humanity has gone so far to seek something that has always been by its side. We have studied countless philosophies, read countless teachings, yet all knowledge remains but a shadow if we have not truly returned to ourselves. The Buddha did not come to give humanity a new religion, but to awaken within each of us the innate capacity for self-liberation, a capacity that has always been there, merely veiled by ignorance and fear. When we truly look deeply, we see that every attachment, every pain, every anxiety arises from clinging, the mind wanting this, fearing that, comparing, resisting. But when we stop and let go, something miraculous happens, the mind becomes light as a cloud, and life becomes transparent. Letting go is not losing, it is being returned to oneself. Inner freedom is not a reward reserved for monks or saints, it is the birthright of every living being. We have simply forgotten it. We build walls of judgment, fear, and memory, then imprison ourselves within them. Buddhism teaches, when there is no one left to fight, and nothing left to win, freedom appears. The battle here is not against others, but against our own delusions. When that inner war ends, liberation dawns. Freedom is when you can smile amid adversity, knowing that everything is but a passing wave upon the vast ocean of being. It is when you no longer need to affirm yourself, because you understand that you are but a part of the infinite flow of life. It is when you can love without fear of loss, give without expecting return, live without needing a reason. Then, life ceases to be a maze and becomes a silent, profound symphony, where even the deepest notes shimmer with light. The Buddha once said, just as the lotus rises from the mud unstained, the awakened one lives in the world yet remains unbound by it. That is the most beautiful image of freedom. For freedom is not escaping life, but living fully within it, with a heart that is no longer chained. When the mind is still, the world becomes clear. When the heart is open, everything is a path. When we understand this, we begin to live differently. We no longer see suffering as an enemy, but as an old friend reminding us to awaken. We no longer blame others for our pain, but see them as mirrors reflecting our own inner world. And through each experience, we learn to release, to understand, to love. Layer by layer, the heaviness of the heart falls away, and we discover a happiness that depends on nothing, the happiness of freedom. That freedom is quiet, unassuming. It comes gently, like a breeze touching the soul, like dawn light streaming through the window after a long dark night. One day, when you can sit in the middle of a noisy city and still feel peace, when you can smile amid imperfection, when you can be grateful even for difficulties, that is when freedom has bloomed within you. When you are free, you no longer wish to change others, nor need to prove anything. You simply live fully, deeply. Every action, word, and thought becomes an expression of compassion and wisdom. Life is no longer a series of days to endure, but a flowing current to feel, to awaken in, to dissolve into. And then we realize that the Buddhist path, even after more than 2 millennia, has never grown old. For it teaches nothing other than the truth of our own being, a simple yet profound truth, that everyone can be free, if only they turn inward. We need not become saints, nor renounce the world, we only need to live with mindfulness, understand our mind, and not be led by ignorance. For when the light of awareness shines upon the darkness of delusion, darkness has nowhere left to hide. And in that light, we see clearly, freedom has never left us, only we have left ourselves. The journey toward inner freedom is a journey of each breath. There is no haste, no destination to reach. As long as we walk with mindfulness, with understanding and love. Every step is freedom, every breath is liberation. Freedom does not come from striving to become someone, but from letting go of everything we are not. When the shell of ego falls away, We touch the purest part of ourselves, the part unborn, undying, untouched by time or sorrow. That essence is the absolute freedom the Buddha urged each of us to discover. And when you begin to live from that place, where there is no fear, no striving, where every action arises from stillness, you will realize that freedom no longer needs to be found, for you are freedom itself. That is the message Buddha's wisdom journey wishes to share, that the Buddha's path is not about escaping life, but awakening within it. When you understand, suffering ends. When you awaken, fear dissolves. And when you are free, you truly begin to live. Let your heart be light as a cloud, your soul still as water. Allow yourself to lay down the burdens you've carried for too long. Freedom is already there, just waiting for you to smile and see it. If this message touches your heart, share your reflections below, for every word shared is a breeze spreading awareness across the world. And if you wish to continue walking together on the path of understanding, compassion, and inner freedom, subscribe to Buddha's wisdom journey. For here, every story, every breath, every lesson is a step returning you to yourself, where freedom is no longer a dream, but the very essence of life itself.